Well, thank you very much, Miss Becky. I'm proud to be with you after we have the medical marijuana talk, Enter the Pharmacist. Let me address a question real quick. I always get asked the question, well, why isn't pharmacists the ones dispensing or a part of the medical marijuana talk? As was mentioned in the video and Ms. Carr mentioned, this is still federally illegal. Most of your pharmacists have DEA license, which are federal-based licensed. If we were to enter into practice of medical marijuana, we would actually be at risk of losing our DEA license because it would be federally illegal. So pharmacists can't even participate in that system as long as they have a practicing license with a DEA license. So food for thought there. And we probably should be the ones involved because we're the one trained on all the medicines. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. So let me ask a question. How many people in here know their pharmacist by first name? How many people in here's pharmacist knows your first name? And your grandkid's first name? And their ball schedule? And their shoe size? Pharmacists, as was mentioned a while ago in the question, pharmacists historically have been the most trusted profession in the healthcare arena. We are always the most accessible profession. If you have a question about even health in general, a lot of people will go to their pharmacist and ask that question. If you need to know what OTC product to take for your flu-like symptoms that tend to be going around that we all probably walk out of here with today, but that's okay. You go to your pharmacist and you ask that question. Pharmacists serve a very important role in the community. And because of the way the system is set up, and I'm going to do my best to try to explain a very complicated system in a very simple way, very quickly, your pharmacy, your local pharmacy, and even your community retail pharmacies are being put in a position to make business choices a lot of times over health choices. And that's a bad place to be. And I would like to tell you that this is just a pharmacy-only problem, but I have been approached by several disciplines in the medical arena talking about under-reimbursement by insurance companies. And let me tell you, if you think your health is being run by your doctor or your healthcare practitioner, you're mistaken. Your health is being run by your insurance company. Exactly. They decide what they will pay for. They decide what they won't pay for. They will decide what you pay for it. And they'll increase your premiums almost every year. Pharmacy's no different. So let me explain to you the issue at hand. First, you have to know what a PBM is. You hear the word a lot of times, PBM. Pharmacy benefit managers, the easiest way I can describe it is they are the middlemen between your employer and insurance company and your pharmacy to administer your pharmaceutical benefits. So when you go to the pharmacy counter and you hand them your prescription card, that pharmacist will enter that information into their dispensing system, and they will submit a claim based off the prescription that your doctor has prescribed. Now, your insurance at that point gets to decide that they're going to pay for that drug or they're not going to pay for that drug. But they also get to decide what you're going to pay for that drug and what the pharmacy is going to be paid for that drug. The problem we're running into these days is many, many pharmacies are having to close their doors and stop serving their patients because they're being severely underpaid for what it costs to fill a prescription. Let me cover cost for just a second because that's a word that you'll hear thrown around by a lot of different people. Cost on the pharmacy side, and I'm just strictly talking about pharmacy. If you go and you get your blood pressure medicine filled, and let's say you're going to get a 90-day supply, and the cost of that medicine for round numbers is $10. That's what the pharmacy paid to get that medicine into their pharmacy, $10. On top of that, that pharmacist has to pay a pharmacist, a technician, the light bill, the insurance, malpractice insurance we have to carry, the computer program, the bottle they're going to put it in, the label that they're going to put on it, and then the time they're going to spend to educate you about that prescription, how to take it, when not to take it, what not to take it with. The insurance is going to come back to that pharmacist and say, oh, it costs $10, but we're going to pay you $6. If you're lucky. Very many times pharmacists are paid less than $1 for generic medications. Now, sometimes that's not the case. sometimes you will make a little money. And I should have said this in the beginning. I need to disclose, I am a pharmacist. I own a compounding pharmacy in Huntsville, and I only have one contract, and that's with Alabama Medicaid, which is not considered a commercial PBM that I'm talking about. I had a commercial pharmacy, a retail pharmacy, until February 2023, which I had to sell because I was under this problem. I was about 2 months away from not making payroll, and I refused to use my personal money to keep my business open. But pharmacists are being asked to do that. So go back to my cost scenario. When we talk about what pharmacists or what pharmacies need today, pharmacies need to be paid for the cost that it costs to dispense a prescription. If anybody in here is in retail or you sell a widget in your store or your business, let's just say this chair that's around our table costs $50, and I'm a chair salesman, and I'm going to sell them to you. And I'm going to say that chair cost me $50 because that's what I paid to produce that chair. You think I'm going to sell it to you for $50? What am I going to sell it to you for? Maybe $100, maybe $80 if you buy a bunch of them, maybe $75. I'll get you a deal because I'm a nice guy. There's a markup in most retail transactions. That's not true in pharmacy. PBMs want to say they're going to reimburse us at some arbitrary rate that really only they know. It's their formulas, it's their scenarios, and they're going to tell the pharmacy basically take it or leave it. And you'll see an argument in your handout that we provided for you about, well, isn't that just free market? I mean, if pharmacies can't stay in business, isn't that because they weren't doing something that they should have been doing, lowering their prices, being competitive? When it comes to dealing with these PBM insurances, they don't give you an option. It's take it or leave it. And in Alabama, we have a unique scenario. We have one really big insurer in Alabama when it comes to commercial insurance, okay? I didn't say it, you did, okay? Now, this does not apply to Medicare, Medicaid, or federal insurance plan. This is just commercial plans. So some of you may know my name because you probably heard more about HB 238 last session than you did about gaming and gambling, because there was going to be a pharmacy tax put on every prescription that was filled. Now, if you had Medicare and Medicaid or TRICARE, that didn't apply to you, but were you told that? Okay, most time you weren't. Okay, most of the time you weren't. We had a bill, HB 238, which would mimic, now this is going to sound crazy, you're going to go, really? It mimics the reimbursement rate of Alabama Medicaid. That's right, Alabama Medicaid. I would rather take the reimbursement structure of Alabama Medicaid than I would of a commercial insurance. Why? Alabama Medicaid sets a set cost. It's called an Alabama acquisition cost, and that cost is a direct relationship cost to what drugs are being purchased in the state of Alabama. So every month, retail pharmacies have to submit their invoices to the state of Alabama, to Medicaid, actually to an agency that they contract with, to gather this information. And we have to say what we pay for drugs every month. Medicaid averages that, and that's what they reimburse us. Now, on top of that, when I talked to you about cost a while ago, and I said I was going to sell you a chair for $50, and it cost me $50, you said, no, there should be a markup. On top of that, they pay a $10.64 dispensing fee. Now, what is that dispensing fee for? Well, some people who are against PBM legislation will say, well, that's just the greedy pharmacist trying to get rich. They want $10 on every prescription so they can get rich. Well, if you only pay me what it costs to make that chair, $50, how long can I stay in business and take care of you and your family? I can't. And so that 1064 covers all that overhead that I talked about, the pharmacist's salary, the technician's salary, the expenses to run your business from day to day. Most people, and the problem we run into, even the public does not understand how prescription insurance works. And so when you start talking about changing a payment model, there's a lot of questions that come out of that. There's a lot of understanding that has to happen to be able to understand how this complicated system needs to change so that your local pharmacy can continue to serve you. Most pharmacists, and I'll tell you an experience for me, most pharmacists have no problem serving their patients. In fact, I got into pharmacy because I love to serve people. I'm a people person. That's who I am. Many times I would take after-hours prescriptions and deliver them to my patients at their homes. I even went grocery shopping for a few of them because they said, I can't get out, my car's broken, I need bread and milk. That's what pharmacists do. I hope each of you have a relationship with a pharmacist that you know they go above and beyond to make sure your family is taken care of. The main issue here with PBM reform is summed up in this. Pharmacies can no longer serve patients if they're not reimbursed the cost that it costs to dispense a drug. Plain and simple. Now, what would legislation need to look like? Well, we had a piece of legislation last year that did what's called a cost-plus model. The cost of the drug, it's a set fee. It puts a ceiling on what drugs can cost, and it adds a dispensing fee. Now, this is not just an Alabama issue. If you follow the news, you saw that the federal folks had a piece of PBM reform as well. It actually was put on the last funding bill, and we were hoping it was going to sneak through, but it got stripped at the last minute. And that bill was even more stringent than HB 238 because it was a cost-plus-plus model. And what that bill did is it was the cost of the drug. It capped the cost at what was called NADAC. It's another fancy term of index-based pricing. And it added a dispensing fee plus a percentage markup. Now, why would insurance companies be against this? Why would this?
Cost them more money.
Maybe. But if I were to show you, and I would encourage each of you, if you have a commercial insurance plan, some of you may not, you can get on your commercial insurance plan website and you can look up the cost of a drug, what your copay would be and what the pharmacy will get paid. And I want you to go look at the different pharmacies in your community and tell me if it's the same or different. It's different. It's not an even playing field. And here's where it gets more complicated for the insurance company. There's 3 big insurance companies, or PBMs, that have 80% of the marketplace when it comes to prescription drugs. 3 of them. 2 of them are in the top 10 for the Forbes 500. Why? Because they have billions, that's to quote Governor Ivey, that's billions with a B, billions of dollars in profit. So is it going to cost them more money, or is it going to cost them profit? All at your expense, while your premiums go up and your access to health care goes down. And we're going to hear over and over and over until something changes. Another county hospital closed. Another rural pharmacy has closed. Another primary care clinic has closed. Another dental office has shut down. Why? Because we're not getting reimbursed a fair rate to pay just the minimum cost to keep us in business. And who suffers for that? Well, ultimately, the consumer. Pharmacies in Alabama serve about 5,000 individuals per pharmacy. So when you close a pharmacy, that's 5,000 people who no longer have access to that pharmacy. And there's about 10 to 12 people who lose a job. Where does that business go? Well, it may go down the street, because up in Huntsville, where I live, there's plenty of pharmacies up there, and that's the argument. Oh, if one closes, no big deal. What happens if you're in rural Alabama and there's not another pharmacy for 50 or 60 miles? What do you do then? Well, then some people say, well, there's mail order. You can just, send your doctor sends a prescription, they mail it in. Well, now we're sending business out of the state. We want that? I don't think so. I don't want that for any of my patients. Now, if you choose to do that and you like that because it's convenient, it comes to your house, that's great. I have nothing to say against that. But if we're trying to build Alabama, we're trying to keep Alabama people working, we're trying to keep our funds in Alabama, we need to keep our pharmacies and healthcare providers working. So we need PBM reform. Now, are we going to get it this year? I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. We are working. I've worked. Bobby Giles is in the back with Alabama Pharmacy Association, APCI, which is a buying group here in Alabama. We have worked tirelessly to come up with legislation that we think we can get across the finish line. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's some things that we can get passed this year, and there's some things that we can't. But here's the other kicker about that. How many people have been told by their pharmacy that they're underpaid on their prescriptions? You know why that is? Because we're under a gag clause, and guess whose gag clause that is? PBM's. It's in every contract we sign. We cannot discuss or disclose information to the patient based off of your healthcare plan. It's a tough situation. It really is a tough situation. But what I hope you walk away with today is unless something changes, pharmacies will continue to close like mine. In Huntsville, we've lost 3 in the last 3 years. And you say, well, that's no big, it's a bunch in Huntsville, but how about those rural areas where they have one or two? What do we do for them? So I'd much rather answer questions than just keep talking. So if you've got a question about this issue or a question about pharmacy in general, I'd be happy to answer those questions.